Committee meeting, June 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. 4 items on the agenda tonight, first of which is approval of the agreement amendment for improvement 19-02 Cuyuna Lake State Trail Road and parking lot improvements. Mr. Sandy, if you want to explain this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've been out on site in construction mode for about actually 2 months now. This was the part of the project where we had some in-kind work going on with that agreement, along with Knife River out on site doing kind of the final paving and things. So the next 2 items here on this agenda are related. The first item being this agreement amendment with Mike Higgins at the MP Center. So like I said before, we've been doing construction for about a little over 2 months. The site's just kind of getting wrapped up here. And we'd gotten to a point where Mr. Higgins was working on the east end of the property, and Mike called us out there and showed us some soils out on the east end, closer to the wetland, and in other spots too by the building that's kind of far out on his site, where there was some unsuitable soils. We actually noticed this when BPU was digging in the power first. There was some really black, unsuitable type. It seemed like almost like a coal type of material, but there was some like really black, like dirt mixed in with it. And so SEH and myself and Mike, we all looked at it, decided that it was probably best to dig it out as part of the project so that we can build the trail on something that's suitable. Along with the black, unsuitable material, there was willows growing. So he stripped the topsoil off, and there was a bunch of willow sprouts basically growing underneath the topsoil. If you've been on a trail where there's willows under the trail, those actually will grow through the trail over time. And so that was another reason to get rid of that material. And so we decided that it was best if Mike continued to do all of the work below grade on his site for this project, being that he's done all of the removals, he did all of the grading work and everything basically from ground level below. And so we had SEH do some measurements on how much subcut we would like him to do. He has not started it yet, but the amount of work that we're asking him to do is seen on the next page there. It's about 1,800 feet of subcut. He has performed a little bit of it along 13th Street. There was some unsuitable soil along 13th that we had him cut out and put fabric in. He has not started on the east end stuff yet. So his item of work that we've agreed to pricing on is just the labor to cut the material out, place the fabric, and place new sand in its place. And that total amount of work at an agreed upon price is $14,467.50. And so being that this is an agreement and not like a contract change order, we've actually attached an agreement amendment to this agenda request that the city attorney wrote up that basically has the same format as the original agreement, and it just says that he'll correct the unsuitable soils at a fixed cost of $14,467.50. And so that's what's in front of you tonight. If you have questions, I'll take them now. Just an FYI, the second item is actually the materials that go that he's placing. So Knife River has supplied the fabric and the sand and all of that for that work. And so that's the actual change order on the next item.
Okay. You guys have questions?
That kind of answered my, yeah, I guess I do. So the next item is the materials, because we're responsible for providing the materials. So this unsuitables isn't material that we purchased, that we're providing. It was just existing that we're.
Yeah, so he's going to dig it out, leave it on site, and build a berm somewhere on his site with the unsuitable stuff. That material has to stay on site because it's, an old Superfund site, and it's just part of his program. So.
Okay. And the attorney's totally fine with all this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I would move to recommend approving the attached agreement amendment for the subcut work for the improvement 19-02 NP Center site improvement and authorizing payment to Mr. Higgins for the work completed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Second item is the other having to do with improvement 19-02 Cayuga Lake State Trail NP Center segment. This is the change order 1. And go ahead and explain that one, Paul. He pretty much already did, but
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this one, like I said before, is the materials that basically go back where he subcut it out. So it's the fabric and the sand that gets replaced in that that location where he's dug it out. So based on the estimated length and width of these subcuts, SEH has provided the attached change order, which is furnishing some topsoil, some select granular borrow, and the fabric. So a total change order cost of $45,640. This will be a reimbursable cost through our DNR grant, being that it's a direct cost with the trail. So yeah.
I guess I just have one question about the DNR funding right now. As I know there's bonding going through for an extra $2 million for the part going through. For the money that we've already received, is this available?
Yeah, we'll have enough money. Yep. So we actually did, it was a couple meetings ago, I had that attachment in there that kind of showed us where we were at with the west segment being bid out, this one, all the total costs and estimated what's left. So there's going to be a little bit of money left over, I think. It'll probably be in the neighborhood of 100 or so thousand.
Okay.
That are actually proposing to continue just finishing up the design on that east segment across the wetland there. The bonding bill, obviously the legislature, the session closed without any action on anything, and there's not really any proposal to have a special session right now. So our bonding request is kind of out there in this, this unknown land right now. If they have a special session, it's very likely that it'll go through if they pass a bonding bill, unless we might have to wait till next year. I don't know how that's going to go yet.
Erickson?
You mentioned the approximate 100,000 in excess. Is that after this 45?
Yeah, it should be pretty close to that. I don't remember the exact number from a couple meetings ago, but it was like 970 or something, and so we had 1.1 million total, and so we should be right in that range.
Okay. All right. Motion?
Yep. I move to approve the change order 1 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3, we have a cooperative construction agreement with the state of Minnesota for the Highway 25 Bridge Project, SP 1811-35, TH 25018. Go ahead and explain that one, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a project we've been working with MnDOT on for some time. It's the replacement of the bridge over the railroad tracks on Highway 25 as you're entering kind of the East Brainerd Mall area. And so I think it was about a year and a half ago, I think the mayor, Jan Lambert, I think, was on the committee. We talked about aesthetics of the bridge and things. And so this is kind of the final part of this whole thing is getting into a cooperative agreement with MnDOT. This is a $0 agreement, so the city has no cost share in this project, which is fantastic. They're implementing all of the aesthetic preferences we had, putting the trail on the bridge, and then MnDOT also took our money that we had for our trail segment that we were going to build on Highway 25 through Transportation Alternatives. They took that money on our behalf, designed our portion of the trail for us, paid our 20% match on that money, and are going to install that from 10th Avenue Northeast to 28th Street. So all in all, a great joint project between MnDOT and the city. Like I said, $0 for this agreement. This is basically a maintenance agreement. So as soon as these improvements are constructed, the city will be responsible for maintaining the trail, the bridge aesthetics, and the storm sewer and the gravel pit road that we have that runs down by the bridge there. So basically, you can consider this kind of a maintenance agreement that once the trail and everything is done, the city will take responsibility for maintaining those improvements. There's a couple maps on there. You'll be able to see what we're kind of talking about. But like I said, $0 agreement, really a fantastic project to work on with MnDOT. It'll really kind of dress up that area as you're coming into town.
One second. So I know this has mostly just to do with the maintenance agreement. But on the subcommittee, we've had meetings with MnDOT regarding that specific intersection, which we didn't really come to an agreement on how that trail would cross. Does that have any effect on, does this agreement have any effect on that?
No, because the trail is stopping right at 10th on this project.
Okay.
There's not any proposed improvements across or
So this just
anything.
has everything to do on the south side.
Yep, this is everything on the south side. Yep, it has no crossing improvements or anything. It's just leaving the trail right there for 2026. Whenever that comes around, when there's an agreement on how pedestrians cross there, whatever that looks like, those improvements will be constructed at that time, whatever the city agrees upon with MnDOT.
Okay.
So more of a comment, I guess, a little bit of a question. I remember when those aesthetics was presented, they looked really nice, but can you refresh my memory on what was on, it's like some brick, really nice looking brick
Yeah,
work and
so
some-
it'll be like poured in place brick on the pilaster, like the end section. So if you come into, for example, in Baxter, they have the bridge over the Mississippi there. They have the nice aesthetic treatments. So those like pilaster ends will be like brick faced, like it'll be poured in place. It won't be actual brick.
Right.
With our city emblem logo on that. And then the railing is actually kind of formulated to look like a railroad track.
I thought there was some rail.
Yep, and then the inside of the trail will have that same brick pattern. The outside, since there's not really any view shed looking into the bridge, there really isn't many special treatment on the outside of the bridge, but it's all on the inside.
Sure. Yeah, that'll look really good.
Okay.
And that does include a turn lane, which we get a lot of complaints from people that are on 28th Street, trying to look left or right with that, the guardrail there blocks vision a lot. And so there is a turn lane there, which will kind of set that back and provide that line of sight now.
So there'll be a turn lane with the trail.
The right turn lane, yep, turn lane, trail, and then 28th Street. So it'll be set way back.
Sounds expensive. I'm glad they're paying for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to recommend adopting the attached resolution, which enters into the agreement with MnDOT for the bridge replacement project.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The last item, fourth and last item, is a resolution authorizing an agreement with the state of Minnesota to provide public transportation services in the year 2023. I believe we have Mr. Stone here. Name and address, I guess.
Well, I'm here at request of Jennifer
Okay.
because she's at the P&F committee. I'm your transit coordinator, and annually, the state of Minnesota decides whether or not they want to fund transit projects, and they would like to continue to fund Brainerd Public Transit in the next calendar year. The resolution in front of you is authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to enter an agreement with the state of Minnesota, MnDOT, to provide funding to us at a level of 95% operating and 90% capital. The ballpark it, $1 million operating budget, 5% is about $50,000, which will be easily recouped by our ridership's fares. Our ridership actually hit 5,000 in the month of March, so we're on target between 50 and 60,000 rides this year. Coming back out of COVID, that's real positive news. We do this every year. Any questions for me? Obviously, staff would encourage you to.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how far back we've come from how low it was at its lowest point, which was probably zero, I assume.
When we went out in March of 2020, our ridership dropped to 50 people, basically 2 buses. The council at that point authorized me to reduce capacity on the street to try to save money. We are still running at reduced capacity. We're 1 bus short, but we're finally up to a level where the buses are efficient, transporting more and more people, and we're looking to add that final route probably in September.
Okay. We're just waiting on that bus that we purchased a while
Pardon?
back, correct? Still waiting on the bus that we purchased a while back?
The 2020 bus arrived last week. The
Okay.
2021 and 2022, they're saying maybe we'll see them in 2025.
Okay.
So
see.
what that means for us is I'm glad we're operating at a reduced capacity because we're saving miles on the buses. We're going to have to keep them around for a while.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I had a question
Yeah,
as
go ahead.
well. So Andy, you brought up the COVID ridership and the dip, of course. How are we comparing to like pre-COVID, like 2019, 2018? Is it, can you
Pre-COVID,
just ballpark?
the last year before COVID, we were at 64,000 rides annually. And that's system rides. That's, you know, the city, which has the majority of it, and the county, Baxter and Pine River, the, what I call the co-op, the participants in the transit program.
Okay, thanks.
All right,
Okay, I have a motion.
go ahead.
I move to adopt the attached resolution as proposed to allow proper signatures on the grant agreement with the state of Minnesota.
Second, Erickson.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Stone.
Thank you very much.
We can adjourn to the council meeting.
Turn off my computer.
Restarted.